Hello everyone, welcome to my another lecture on training today. As we have been talking about in my previous sessions, we were discussing things related with training. So by this time, I'm sure you know what is the meaning of training or what is the difference between training and development. Now today what I'm going to talk about is, I'm again going to talk about one of the very important topics related with training. Now the topic that I'm going to cover today with you is all related with the methods of training. I'm going to talk about two basic methods of training, my dear friends. And these methods, they are the most widely used methods. So generally, it is related with the on-the-job training method and off-the-job training method. So when we are talking about on-the-job training method or off-the-job training method, we have to bear in mind that both the methods, they have their own respective advantages and disadvantages. And again, it is the prerogative of the company to make a decision as to what kind of training they are going to initiate at their office level or maybe at the department level or in their organization. So let's proceed with the topic on methods of training. As you can see on the screen also, this is again a chart that has been taken from my own book of HRM by Dr. Rakhi Gupta. As you can see on the screen that basically there are two methods, on the job and off the job. So before I proceed, let me give you the meaning of on the job method. Now, when we talk about the on-the-job method or training method, it's basically a technique where the workers or the operative staff is given the direct instructions to perform their jobs on the actual work floor. Now, basically in a nutshell, what we can say that on-the-job training is basically on the principle of learning by doing. That is, the workers learn the job while performing it within the actual work environment. This type of training is beneficial for both the workers and the organization. In the case of on-the-job training, what we have to keep in mind that it is basically imparted in a short span of time, and basically it is for the people who are on the job. And as we all know that whether we are talking about on-the-job training method or whether we are talking about the off-the-job training method, the main purpose is to enhance the KSA, that is knowledge, skills and abilities. So whether it is on the job or off the job, in both the cases, we will be seeing an increase in the knowledge base of the workers, or the skill set would be improving, or the capabilities or the abilities or the competencies of the people, they would be having a positive impact. Then here in the case of on the job, the supervisor, basically what happens is that he or she demonstrates the way in which the materials, tools and equipment must be handled, and then later the workers, they are asked to repeat whatever he or she has seen in the presence of the supervisor. And my dear friends, it is one of the most easy ways for the workers to get the practical knowledge and simultaneously implement it also. So as you can see on the screen, basically there are two types of methods that I'm going to discuss today. Let's take up the on-the-job method first. Now, as far as this on-the-job methods are concerned, basically there are the following ones. You have to bear in mind that the on-the-job training method, since it's learning by doing and it is basically for a short span, so it is very cheap and less time consuming, and basically it can be imparted in different ways. The first one, as you can see, it's all related with coaching, mentoring, job rotation, job instructional training, understudy, apprenticeship, committee assignments. Of the job, it's all related with lectures, conferences, vestibule training, films, videos, simulation exercises. Then we have got management games, case studies, in-basket training, role play and sensitivity training. So I'll be discussing all these methods in length with you today. Let's have a look at the on-the-job training method. These are basically these ones like coaching, mentoring, job rotation, JIT, understudy, apprenticeship and committee assignments. Now, let's take one by one. The first one happens to be the coaching method. Now, coaching is like a simple method. Under this method, we only talk about learning by doing. That is one of the main features of the on-the-job training method. Here, what happens is the experienced supervisor or staff guides and gives the instructions to the workers to perform a particular task. So once the instructions have been given, then he asks the person to repeat the same. So he is able to point out the mistakes or the criticisms that they make, and simultaneously they are able to get these suggestions also from their supervisors or guide for the improvement. Thus, it aims at the growth of the employee. This type of training is basically where the workers can get answers to their problems and they can learn by the instructions and the demonstrations given by the experienced staff or supervisor. So, this is a very easy way. We are just there as a supervisor who is just telling them, giving them instructions to perform a particular task, and as soon as the instructions are given, people are asked to do the task, and immediately they can be given the feedback. So, definitely there is an active participation of the supervisor also or the training staff, and of course, there is a participation from the workers' point of view also. Then second, it talks about the mentoring. Now, in the case of mentoring, the training is given to the managerial level people. So, coaching is basically for the worker level people, but in the case of mentoring, it's more of the managerial level people. So, managerial level people, they are basically more skillful or they are better than the unskilled or semi-skilled people. So, here also the instructions are given to the subordinates to carry out the day-to-day functioning, and in this type of training, regarding one-to-one or face-to-face training, the manager is considered as the mentor and he or she guides the employee in times of difficulty, thus enabling them to learn and develop. So, it's like mentoring is like more of a supervision type of giving thing, that okay, if there is a problem you can act in this manner, if there is a problem then you can take this step. So, this is kind of a mentoring where we are actually guiding people. So, when we are talking about mentoring, it is all related with guiding people, and guiding will only be needed once people are getting deviated or they don't know how to do a particular task or how to carry on a particular activity. The next one is all related with the job rotation. Now, under this job rotation, what happens is like an employee is often shifted to the other related jobs with the intention to make him well versed with the other job backgrounds. The purpose is to make the person learn or perform different types of jobs. For example, in the case of job rotation, there is an example of banking. So, a person who is working in a bank, he or she can work both back end also and the front end also. So, if supposing if the person is working on the front end, then the person may be dealing with the clients or the customers, or maybe interacting with the people or outside world. But if the person is in the back end job, maybe he or she is handling cash management or wealth management or something like that, then the person keeps rotating from one position to the another position, and the main purpose is to acclimatize a person with different job profiles, because every job profile needs different skill set. So, this is how a person basically learns. But one of the biggest drawbacks, my dear friends, which is associated with job rotation is that as soon as a person gets settled, he or she comes to know that again he has been shifted. So, adaptability and adjustment is a big problem related with job rotation. And if we see on the positive end, it is again a person can gain different skill set by moving from one job to the another job. So, at times people feel that the person is moved in the same arena, or in some organization he may be moved to other job profiles which is not actually related with his job. But again, the main purpose is to make the person versatile, learn different skills and become better at different handling different job profiles. But again, one of the drawbacks which is associated with the job rotation is that the person can become bored, or there is an adaptability problem, or maybe at times people feel that why am I being shifted from one job to another? I should have been at one place where I could have been more focused. At times, it provides opportunities for a very, very comprehensive and reliable evaluation of the manager by his or her supervisors. And as I told you, that it's an easy way by which one can take on different skill sets to their personality. Then, in the case of on the job, the next one happens to be the JIT, that is Job Instructional Training. Under this training, basically a trainer designs a step-by-step training program, and along with the instructions to perform. Here, once the instructions have been given to the person, he or she is expected to perform in the same manner. And firstly, the overview of the job along with the desired results is explained to the trainee, that okay, what is expected out of you, you are supposed to perform in this manner. And then the skills which are required for the job is also demonstrated by the trainer. Then once it has been demonstrated by the trainer, then a worker is allowed to perform the job as per his acquired skills or expertise. And then finally, the workers are asked to give their feedback or ask any query arising out of their training program. However, this JIT method, it was actually developed during World War II, which happens to be a 4-step instructional process involving preparation, presentation, performance, tryout and follow-up. So basically in the case of JIT, it is primarily used to teach workers how to do their current job. So a trainer, a supervisor or a co-worker acts as a coach, and there can be different steps which can be followed in the JIT. So as I told you that the trainee will firstly receive the overview of the job, then the trainer is going to demonstrate the job, what the job has to be performed. Then the employee or the worker is permitted to copy the trainer's way. That means once the demonstrations have been given by the trainer, and then the trainee is supposed to repeat the same. And lastly, what happens is that the employee does the job independently without supervision. So once he or she does the job independently without supervision, that means the person is getting better and better with that particular job. Another method of on-the-job training is all related with the understudy. Now, once we talk about this understudy is basically what happens is, like, in case if a person is absent for a job, then the person is trained to take over that position in his absence. So, and anybody can be absent in a job because of any of the reasons. It could be the retirement, it could be the death, it could be transfer, it could be related with prolonged illness, etc. So here the employees take the order from the seniors, they observe them, attend the meetings, observe the decision making method and learn how to tackle day-to-day problems. So in a nutshell, what you have to remember is that in the case of understudy, the person is being prepared for future positions. The person is being prepared for future positions. So if there is a vacancy in future, then the person is quite apt to take on those positions. Then the next one that we have is all related with the apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeship is basically again a kind of a training which is given to the people in craft, in trade or in technical field that actually require a long-term learning before they can actually gain the proficiency in their respective discipline. So, it is a training of system to a new generation of practitioners of the skill. Here people, they will be working under somebody who is very experienced, and basically the main purpose is to gain proficiency in that particular area. They perform their own task under the direct supervision of their guide, mentor or senior or masters. For example, if there is a trainee or if there is a law trainee, then that law trainee will be working under the experienced advocate. Then the person will be observing him, going for the meetings or seeing how the person is doing. So naturally the person is getting better and better day by day. And it says that it is an expensive method of training. As such, there is no guarantee that the trained worker will continue to work in the same organization after securing training. So anybody who is working as a chartered accountant and if the person has cleared a chartered accountancy exam, or if the person is doing any kind of apprenticeship training, so if the person is working under somebody, so it's not necessary that the person will be absorbed in that particular job. They can be different people under whom he can work, but it's just that he is doing his intern or apprenticeship training under some guidance. So basically what happens is that the apprentices, they are at times they are paid remuneration according to the apprenticeship agreement, and if needed they may be paid and if needed they may not be paid. But ultimately the main aim is that the person should get more proficient related to that particular field. Then the one you see on the screen is all related with the committee assignment, right? So committee assignment in the case, in this method, basically what happens is that the trainees are asked to solve an actual problem, giving them a a broader experience or broadening experience. And the trainees, they work together, they offer different solutions to the problem. So, assigning talented employees to important committees, they can give the employees a better experience. So, if at any point of time if somebody has to be recommended, so anybody can be recommended for any of the committees or maybe another task. So, once if anyone is recommended, so naturally the person is going to learn, and it would always help the person to understand the different personalities, the issues and the processes which actually govern the organization. So, committee assignment is basically where people are asked to solve a real-time problem, and they may be recommended to different positions so as to give them a better experience of different aspects related with the company. Then, as I told you that on-the-job training methods are the methods where the person is actually doing his or her job also and simultaneously learning also. So, the ones which I just discussed with you are basically the ways by which the person can learn different things. But however, there are certain advantages and disadvantages which are associated with the on-the-job training method. If in a nutshell, if we talk about the simple advantages, that it's very quick, less time consuming, the feedback can be given, the person can actually understand. In case if he or she has any queries, those queries they can be sorted out immediately. So, in a nutshell, it's like very easy that okay, fine, if you're working in an organization, somebody is guiding you, somebody is telling you, giving the instruction, and then simultaneously you're asked to perform also. And then once you're performing, so it becomes very natural, okay, if you are facing with any of the problem, those problems they can be sorted out and the feedback and the criticisms can be given so that you can improvise upon them. But however, there are certain disadvantages also. So, let's have a look on the screen. As you can see, one of the advantages of on the job is that there is fast learning process. The process is quite fast. Why? Because you are actually learning by doing. You are learning also and simultaneously you are copying also or repeating the task. So, it's much more easy for you to learn the things. Then it is economical because it's just your immediate supervisor, your manager or maybe your experienced colleague can only teach you. So, we do not have to get somebody from outside basically. But here the best part is that the feedback can be given immediately. You can understand the mistakes that you're making. And once you understand that the mistakes that you have made, you don't have to repeat them. So, if you do not repeat those mistakes, that means you're becoming better and better. Then here the person feels very confident. Reason being, if you're doing anything and if your supervisor compliments you or the manager compliments you, okay, that you have done your work very nicely, what the instructions that were given to you, you have followed those instructions, that means there is a boost in the confidence level. Then this is morely suitable for the unskilled and the semi-skilled jobs where the job operators are simple, easy to explain and demonstrate within a short span of time. You have to understand this short span of time is very important because in the case of on-the-job training is actually imparted in a short span of time. So, definitely things can be easily learned by people. But however, it also suffers from various demerits also. For example, the first thing is that the trainee should be as good as the trainer. This is very important because it's not necessary that the trainer is good enough to teach you because people will be busy with their own task. Who has the time to teach you? But if the trainer is good enough, he has those skills, he has that patience level, and then he can actually monitor you, tell your mistakes, give you the feedback, tell you about the criticism. So, that is the best part. But on the flip side, if the trainer is not good enough, that means the training is futile. Then, another demerit is while learning, trainee may damage equipment, waste material or cause accident. Now, this is again a very important part. Why? Because they are novice. They are not that very experienced. Had they been that very experienced, they wouldn't have been there for training. So, definitely there can be some kind of loss that has to be borne by the management in terms of loss of material, in the form of equipment, because people are not experienced, there may be accidents, and then accidents have their own disadvantages. Then lastly, experienced workers cannot use the machinery while it is being used for training. So, definitely if there are, supposing if there are 2-3 machinery, then the person can use it. But supposing if there is only one machinery and then the person is being taught on that particular machinery, then again it's a big drawback, because there would be, it would result in the time wastage, and then again once there's a time wastage or loss or damage, ultimately it will have an impact on the productivity of the company. So that, of course, that is not at all acceptable. So basically these are the advantages and disadvantages of on-the-job training methods. Now, the next that we discuss with you is all related with the off-the-job training methods. Now, before I proceed with the off-the-job, let me give you the gist of what is the meaning of off-the-job training. It is actually given outside the actual workplace, as we can see from the name only, off the job. That means you do not have to perform the job, or you don't have to learn while you're doing or performing a job, but it is done outside the actual workplace. Off-the-job training is also known as, at times it is also known as the vestibule training, where people are trained in a separate area where the actual working conditions are duplicated. So, I will be discussing about the vestibule training also in a while. Then, what you have to bear in mind is that in the case of off-the-job training, it is only possible once we have a large number of people. So, once we were talking about the on-the-job, we remember that it is for the less number of people. For example, if one wants to learn cooking, so there can be a few people who can be surrounded by the main chef, and then the person can learn. But supposing if there are thousands and thousands of people you have to give the training, then it is not possible. So, in the case of the job, it is basically for people where there is a large number of employees who have to be trained within a short span of time. And they generally of the job trainings, they are initiated by the companies in case of new employees, and they have to work in a different environment. That means they can be, it's not necessary that they have to be in the office to learn them. So, these are the main features of the job training. Now, once we start with this, we know that in the case of the job training, it's all related with the sensitivity training, lecture method, vestibule training. So, when we talk about vestibule, it's basically where it is like where the employees are trained in a separate area. We have to keep in mind that the people are trained in separate areas. And so, one separate area means that you are not actually performing the job, but you are in a different area to work it. Then we have got something which is known as the simulation exercises. In this simulation exercises, we have got something related with management games, case studies, role play, and in-basket exercises. Let's discuss them at length. For example, we've got lecture method or conferences. We know that lecture is so very common. What am I doing right now is giving you a lecture. It's just one-sided. But in an actual classroom or in an actual environment, at times it can become two-way also. So, we know that any form of lecture or conference is a kind of a verbal training which is being imparted by the experts to the people. And in the case of lecture or conferences, they are basically the traditional methods of providing training, and it is adapted for the purpose of conveying the rules and regulation, methods, information, anything can be given to them. So, because we have a verbal interaction with the audience, so at times it can be boring also, at times it can be interesting also, and at times it can be motivating also, which can actually keep up the interest of the audience. So, but the basic requisite in the case of lecture or conference is that the person should be a good orator, the person should have good subject knowledge, and we know that this is a very common form of training in colleges, in universities, and we know that the cost per trainee is generally very low. The company will also keep in consideration the cost the company has to incur. So, let's have a look at this vestibule training and sensitivity training. They are slightly different from each other. So, in the case of vestibule training, basically it's a kind of, as I told you, it's away from the actual work, and it's a method that teaches employees how to use new or advanced equipment. This is more or less with the technical aspect, that equipment part is here, and it is also known as the near the job training. Near the job training basically means, again, you are not on the actual training, you are not on the actual job, but it is just replicated. And definitely in the vestibule training, it helps the employees to prepare handling equipments in real life without the risk of damaging the equipment or harming themselves or both. Earlier we just mentioned that in the case of on-the-job training method, there can be some kind of damage that can be done, because people are being taught and they are asked to perform the task. So at times it would result in the loss of material, or there can be some kind of accidents, or maybe the equipment it can also get damaged. So basically vestibule training is just a kind of a near-the-job method. Then we have got something which is known as the sensitivity training. Now, sensitivity training is also known as the T training, where the training basically understand themselves and by others by developing social sensitivity and behavioral flexibility. So, as you can see on the screen, it's like it basically helps in the improvement of communication, team building, or maybe how we can reduce the incidence of discrimination, harassment. So, this is more of a sensitivity training. The word itself telling us that it's related with the sensitivity training. And here also what happens in the sensitivity training is that people are trained to handle different positions, keeping in mind their behavioral pattern also. And it reveals the information about his or her own personal qualities. It can be related with concerns, it can be related with emotional issues, or things like this. So, it's basically a sensitivity training. Now, other forms of the job training methods is all related with the simulation exercises. Now, they are the very common one. When we talk about the simulation exercises, basically these are the exercises which area where the artificial environment is created to get the feeling of real situation. In other words, what we can say, my friends, is that the environment is closely mirrored to the actual working condition, which is known as simulation. And here trainings are placed in the artificial environment, and then through this they are trained. Simulation basically, they are not the real environment, but they are the artificial environment. And there are basically 4 simulation techniques that can be adopted. It can be management games, case study, role play, and in-basket training. So, one of the biggest advantage which is associated with the simulation exercises is that again there will be no loss, nothing like that, because it's just an environment that has been created for the person to learn. So, it's very real based environment is there, and then people are asked to perform the jobs. So, the methods are the management games. Now, when we have the management games are always fun way of teaching and learning. So, definitely management games are there to enhance the thinking habits of the people. Definitely there can be some kind of improvement related with the L&R, that is logical reasoning, reasoning capabilities can be improved, analytical skills can be improved, fostering team spirit or team building. All these things, they are actually improved with the help of games. So, management games basically helps a candidate to get used to the practical applicabilities, and it provides a very rapid experience of particular learning, and they can be very quick, they can be simple, and can be related to the different levels of length and direction. So, here in the case of management games, when people are asked to be a part of the management games, so there can be some kind of trust building games, there can be some kind of team building games, and there can be some kind of exercises that can be asked people to perform related with their reasoning part, or maybe analytical part, or maybe decision making part, so on and so forth. And at times there can be some kind of computer simulations also, which the managers can play and understand the intricacies of the business of any particular area. So, these games basically surround around the thought and creativity to help managers to find the creative ways to solve the problems in the workplace. So, management games in a nutshell, they are very exciting way of teaching people. Then the next one we have is like the case study. Now, these case studies, they are very common in top-notch institutes. So, case study is basically nothing but here again there are chances to analyze, develop analytical and problem-solving skills. So, this type of study basically provides the trainee with the chance to analyze and have a brainstorming session related with the real life work issues. So, there can be different kind of case studies that can be given to them with the maybe with relevant charts and figures, and then people are asked to discuss. So, everybody will be discussing as per their own mindset, And definitely people, because of the brainstorming method, people will come out with different ideas. And it says that this method also inculcates a sense of team spirit, team building, and they all make an attempt to solve the complex problem. So definitely one gets better horizon, or how a person should solve a particular problem if there exists such a way. So this is an active way of enhancing the desire of the trainee to learn, and all types of issues could be covered. For example, how to handle a new product launch, or it can be how to handle the dissatisfaction level of the customers, anything. It can be related with anything. So here the employee attempts to find out and analyze the problem, evaluate the alternatives, and decide what course of action would be most satisfactory. So case study method is definitely one of the best ways of enhancing the skills of individuals. Next, we have got something which is known as a role play. Now, role play is again a simulation in which each participant is given a role to play. Trainees are given with some information related to description of the role, their concerns, their objectives, responsibilities, duties, emotions, etc. And then a general description of the situation and the problem that each one of them faces is given. In this type of method or training, my dear friends, trainees are required to enact. You have to understand this, enact. That means they have to play, define a particular role on the basis of the description which has been given. So once everything has been mentioned to the candidate, and then they have to enact a particular role. And it says that the role playing can be very, very effective in connecting theory and practice. So what has been taught in theory, it can be connected with practice, because you are enacting that particular personality, then you start feeling in that manner. And at times people also, they don't feel comfortable performing in front of a large group of people. So this can be one of the drawbacks that can be associated with this role play. Then the last one that we have is the in-basket training. This is again one of the very, very exciting ways of teaching people. And it says it is also known as the in-tray. This method is also known as the in-tray method, in-tray training method. In-tray training method, basically here what happens, tray is a place where you can keep all the things. So as a part of training, in-tray training, it consists of a set of business papers. They can be given to people, and then it can have a number of emails, SMSs, reports, memos and other items. And then the trainer is asked to prioritize the decisions to be made immediately and the ones which can be delayed. So here in the case of in-basket training, people, they get an idea which are the most important issues of the organization that have to be addressed immediately. And then the trainee is presented with the pack of papers and the files, and then the decisions are taken. So this is how they start thinking which are the issues which have to be taken care of first. And of course, my dear friends, you have to understand this is all within the period of stipulated time period. So the decision taken by the trainees are compared with one another, and then the trainees are provided with the feedback on their performances. So these were actually the different ways of off-the-job training methods. Now, as when I was discussing about the on-the-job training methods, we came across the different advantages and disadvantages also. So is the case with the off-the-job training method also. In the case of off-the-job training methods, the following are the advantages and disadvantages which are mentioned on your screen. So as you can see that it is cost effective. One of the advantage of cost effective, because there is no loss of machinery or damage. Low production error, because the people are not asked to work on the exact machinery. It's just the duplicated part or just the simulated part. Then no chances of accident, because people are not performing on the actual task, and the productivity is also maintained. But one of the biggest disadvantage of the job is that there is no quick feedback, because there is only one side learning. People are just being taught, but they are not implementing it. So once they are not implementing it, so they are not being given any feedback. So it's less effective, as they may not express their queries. Why? Because they are not implementing it, so they are not getting the feedback also. At times it can hamper the production schedule, because they are away from their actual job. It may hamper the production schedule because people are away from their actual job. So the time that they should have been there doing the job, they are spending that time in learning new things. And then it's expensive and less interesting. Why expensive? Because at times the different things have to be kept in mind. Maybe the training is being done in any hotel, or maybe outstation training or something like that. So definitely it is very, very cost effective. It's not cost effective, it's very, very expensive, and at times it's very less interesting because they are not getting a chance to apply those skills immediately. So, my dear friends, these were the different disadvantages that are associated with the off-the-job training methods. So, by this time, I'm sure you must be aware about the different ways of training on the job and off the job. On the job training methods are the methods which are actually done when you are learning and doing the things, and of course, it suffers from various advantages and disadvantages also. Whereas in the case of off-the-job training method, people are trained in different ways away from their actual workplaces, and there can be some kind of simulation and other things. But again, it also has its own respective advantages and disadvantages. So, no method is perfect, but it is all dependent upon the company to take a decision or a call which type of training method has to be taken care of. So, that's all I have for you today on this video. I shall see you in the next one. Thank you so much and stay tuned.